morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend Raphael Weisman. Hi, Raphael.
Hi, Kathy. Always good to see you again.
Yeah. So Raphael and I met, I guess, 8 years or more ago at a Co-Creators Convergence event in Loveland, Colorado. And it was, we recognized each other's energy, kind of. It's like a brother sister energy. And so I've stayed in contact with him, and Raphael has done so many wonderful things in this time period that we want to share today to give you an idea of how you can navigate these times with ease and grace, right?
Yep. That's what we came here for.
Right. Well, Raphael's most current newsletter, if you get on his newsletter email list, is about, are we here? Are we there yet? And anyone that's been on this journey of awakening knows what that means and are very impatient about, come on already. So, Raphael, why don't we first start, for people that don't know you, to find out a little bit about your journey that led you to this. And then I'd love to talk about why we aren't here yet or what we need to do to get here yet. Okay?
Sure. So I was born in South Africa. I lived in Israel. I lived in England. I studied instrument making in England. When I was in Israel, I was in the Israeli army, and I also went to the Hebrew University to study English literature, and I minored in philosophy and musicology. I'm passionate about music, and eventually, after I finished my BA there in Jerusalem, I moved to London, and I trained as an instrument maker of early musical instruments, Renaissance instruments, Baroque, the lute, and a whole bevy of very interesting sounding names like orfarians and vihuelas and bandoras, instruments that were being played at the time as part of the revival of early music, which was happening in London. I ended up having a workshop after my training right next to the Early Music Center. And I was very much part of the Renaissance of the early music world. Just as many years later, when I moved to the States, I became a harp maker, and I had a business called Harps of Lorien. And there I was also at a renaissance, this time of the therapy movement, where people were playing the harp in hospital and hospice. And I was building harps. You can actually see one behind me on my wall. This is my own personal therapy harp with a strap that I can also jam with. So music is one of my big loves. And all along the journey, I was exposed to spiritual awakening in some way or another. The subjects I took at the university in English were all about transcendental things, poetry. I was an absolute passionate fan of Shakespeare. And over the years, I started to connect with various people. Actually, at the time I lived in London, I met a man called Marshall Lever, who was a channel, full trance channel, and he channeled an old Chinese guide. And Kathy, of course, has experienced some of this already in our previous connections, where I actually channeled old Chinese at her home. And we've done a few interviews referencing old Chinese. And he's also one of the characters in the book that I channeled, 12, which became 13 voices that call himself the New Earth Council. And old Chinese was a tremendous inspiration to me. He called himself Chung Fu, which means inner truth. And the wisdom at the time, again, It was a pivotal time when I lived in London and then moved to the States and had the connection with Old Chinese. It was all about learning to live in all worlds, or in both worlds, you might say, the spiritual, transcendental world and universe, and then the very nitty-gritty physical world. It was just the beginning of people becoming aware of crystals, cataclysmic changes of the earth, all sorts of numerology, all sorts of amazing stories about the son of the emperor who went to study with the old sage in the forest. And much of this has actually informed my spiritual growth and my ability to tune in psychically, to be able to bring forth the wisdom of my guides. And this book is about 13 voices. It was originally 12 that I was asked to receive in my morning meditations. Each one showed up on 12 consecutive days. Then I was asked to teach a class in which each voice would actually share their wisdom and answer questions. In the end, the 13th voice was the Christ. And I knew by the time we reached that point that this was going to be a book. And in 2022, I think it may have been, I finally had done all the edits and all the changes, and the book was ready for publication. And it's now available through Amazon and through me. And it's called The Path of the Spiritual Warrior by the New Earth Council and myself. So I don't know if that takes us up to date.
Oh, that's great. So, and part of the the excitement I had when I met Raphael, when he talks about Old Chinese, is I followed a gentleman named Stuart Wilde, who, if many of you may have remembered Nightingale Conant, which was a long time ago, that was a vendor of business training. And Stuart Wilde, who was really a very transcendent metaphysical teacher, was a author and a producer of content on that site, which was way out. But he also followed Old Chinese. And so when Raphael talked about Old Chinese, I have, I think, 6 of Stuart Wilde's books on that bookshelf. So I was a big fan, and he was so courageous because what you're seeing is you're seeing the ancient knowledge coming back out and being usable in everyday life to help us be all that we can be. We've been conditioned or programmed, not necessarily with ill intent. It was what our parents knew, and they lovingly showed us the path to what they thought was happiness. We took those societal trainings, but now we're seeing that we're so much more and don't need to live in a fear lifestyle. And that's why I love talking to Raphael and hearing about what his journey is, because Raphael did he's done so much. So he's done the music and the channeling and the showing up basically for a different kind of lifestyle. You were living in more of a communal lifestyle in your youth, and now you're kind of creating community with your knowledge, where everyone is empowered to be either to the next step of their evolution or all the way to their Christed self. Would you agree?
I love that description. So yeah, Stuart and I were part of the same group. I actually used to do woodwork in his home when he lived in Taos. And yeah, I loved his humor.
Yeah.
And I remember, the only book of his I remember is life wasn't meant to be hard or something like that.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the hammock, maybe with drinking a beer. And he grew up in the rag trade in London, and I knew him in London. And then we all of us ended up in the States at the incentive of Old Chinese to bring us all here. But I want to share that my journey has taken me through many cycles, many phases. I lost my daughter in a car accident when this was in 1990, which created a huge shift in my life. I had to start a whole new life. And in the process, I was exposed to many other spiritual practices, modalities. I became part of soul support systems with Flo Magdalena, and her book, I remember Union, and the connection with the Magdalene. And then I learned how to do and also to teach a process called heart thread, which replaces these old patterns through a beautiful process of going into the heart. So I've been focusing on the heart as my compass. And I always encourage people as much as possible to find a way to open their hearts to unconditional love and love of self. And in the process, I've also learned a number of new modalities which have come on in addition to my ability to channel and psychically almost know what's going on with people. And this is related to the heart because one of the things that I do is called the emotion code. This was created by Dr. Bradley Nelson of Discover Healing. And he teaches how to remove heart walls. So when your heart is blocked, it's because there's an accumulation of walls, of a wall made up of these bricks, each one being a trapped emotion or an emotion that never got released. And it starts to create a prison for you, even though originally its intention was to protect you. So I learned the emotion code by reading the book and then playing with it, practicing it. But then I decided I needed to become a fully fledged practitioner. So that was the beginning of this new phase of learning these modalities. I have been able to release heart walls for people, but also release trapped emotions that are stored in the body, which can free you up to become your true self because you're not cluttered with all these old emotions that have been running the show in the background, just as in the case with Heart Thread. But then I discovered that, the next level was the body code. And I thought, oh, I don't need that. I already do Heart Thread. But when I started doing the body code, I started finding that you could go into all sorts of details, organs, glands in the body. You could heal them. You could actually release stuff very simply just by running a magnet over your governing meridian. I've been blown away by the results.
Yeah.
And then I discovered that, then I did the belief code, which is the next level and much more similar to Heart Thread even. But with body code, I could release curses and hexes, sabotage mechanisms from other people, ancestral stuff.
Wow.
I could release old vows and the ability that one has when you compound it with a psychic sense. So I could actually go, a miasm is an illness from an ancestor. And I can actually go in and release and identify how many generations ago this particular ancestor, whether it was a male or female, and what was the illness that they had. And I can release it from the whole lineage just through swiping a magnet. It blows me away.
So I have a question about that. Okay, you can do that. Can you do it for yourself? If you're
I actually, given that we're coming back now to, are we there yet? Right? Given that, my guides shared when they gave a few channelings, I always put up a channeling every once in a while. When I go to the woods, they give me a message and I put it on my YouTube channel. And I started getting more and more messages about the period around the elections in November, all the way through now, January, February, and into March, that this was going to be a pivotal time of great challenge, and that we would actually have to face, in many ways, our own demons, our dark nights of the soul. The light workers all have to clear out all the garbage that gets in the way of becoming the true selves that we are that we want to be, and aspiring to be is the word. And so in the process, I personally have been going through many shifts, many changes, many challenges, many emotions. I'm still dealing with some of my physical issues. Some got resolved. So whenever something major comes up, a heartbreak, a big disappointment, I go straight into my charts and I do a session on myself. And I just keep doing it till I get told that's enough. And then later I'll go back another day, another time. And I also have an awareness that this is happening not just for me, for many of the light workers. Many of my friends are also channels and Akashic readers, and they do activations, and they're connected to galactic federations and all the many available influences that are helping us at this time to transition through this period into the new earth. And so I'm also very aware that the elections and everything on the tail of the elections and the current administration, however we badmouth them and however we see the things that they're doing, there is an underlying pattern that you might call God's purpose, that I believe is part of what is necessary to almost dematerialize, to bring about the dismantling of all the old patriarchal structures, all the systems that are not in alignment with the new earth and the new vibration. And so living within this time of this disintegration, whether it's social systems, financial systems, emotional systems, spiritual systems, everything that's not of the highest frequency has to go. Mm-hmm. And these people, I don't see everything as black and white, as good and bad. I see everything as part of God's love unfolding in this world in order to create the new earth and the new dispensation. And I know in my time and in many of our time, we are going to experience this shift to higher and higher levels of clarity, of understanding, of spirituality, and higher frequencies. Because when we live according to the universal law, especially the universal law of attraction, you attract to you the vibration that you put out. So when you radiate light, when you send light into the darkness, when you send light to those who have lost loved ones, when you radiate light to those who are suffering from trauma, from all the horrific things that are going on in the world, especially with the children and the trafficking and all the pain and suffering, when you send light into the world, you're contributing to balancing out and diminishing the power of I don't like to call it darkness because there is a place where darkness belongs, but evil. And the more light we radiate into the world and direct towards individuals that we know, the more we're encouraging and we're creating an opposite. We're going beyond just balancing, but we're actually moving towards creating a universe based on light and love, cooperation and kindness, and respect for Mother Earth, respect for people, for children. So we have to, the whole old world has to break down. But that's why when you pick the subject, are we there yet? I've been getting the sense that we're moving now very rapidly towards getting closer to that goal. We could start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're coming out, even in the last few days or so, seems like we're coming out of the fog, out of a sense of nothing's working, the money's not coming in, my computer, all the little things that impinge on us and make us worry, or asking us to rise above, see the bigger picture, look for the silver lining, go into the heart and ask, how can I love more? And in fact, this is a little snippet of the book that I received in a morning meditation that's included in one of the chapters, one of the voices. I believe it was Ashtara. If we have time, I can read it towards the end.
That sounds beautiful.
Let me blow my nose quickly.
Okay. Well, so what we're also talking about, why this is relevant for this audience, is most of this audience are servant leaders. They are very interested in making sure their customers get top quality services or products. And they also care deeply about the people that work with them, whether they're contractors or employees, and they care about their development. And they don't have always the time to go get, there's only so much time in the day. And if you spend it towards everyone else, they don't always have time for themselves. But they are leading the charge. In my world, these conscious businesses are what's going to turn around the ship, where it's going to get back to win-win instead of win-lose. And it's going to get back to fulfillment. What makes your heart sing? How do you share your genius? And that's one of the things I thought when Raphael and I first met. He was doing Heart Threads, and we went and had a public group come to the library. And I somewhere have those pictures of you working on people. And it was amazing what came through their truth that no one knew. But you were very kind and loving at helping them identify their block, their truth. And it's a lot of that's what we are ashamed of, or that are still, it's in our field that's not allowing us to love ourselves. And then after you did that process with this woman, it was like she was glowing. It had been like an anchor in her life, and it was transmuted. And then after you did the heart thread work, maybe a year or so later, 2 years later, you started doing the motion code. And I really think the motion code, the body code, and those processes are ideal for servant leaders. When they get a chance to release anything that they're not aware of, just with one session, to shift their mindset so they can give the gift that they are, that helps everything in their business. It helps everyone around them, right?
Yes. So actually, even it's I never imagined I would be who I am today. But you experienced heart thread, way back then, and the emotion code. And when I do a heart thread session now, it's even more potent. It's
Wow.
even 10 times better. I can actually feel the presence of the guides around the person, and I could sense it in myself through my, visualizing these colors that come in, and I feel the presence. And I absolutely know in most cases, I ask them, can you feel it? And they are also feeling it. And sometimes I have no idea, like when I do an intuitive life reading, which is a channeling for somebody, that I've never met, I don't know them from Adam or Eve. I end up, telling them all these things, and they say, "No, well, that's right on. How did you know?" It's mind-boggling to me how much my inner life has begun to inform my outer life in such a way that I just seem to know. I channel, yes, and I get messages, yes. But there's something, for me, the focus is on opening hearts. If I can help somebody to open their heart, they will automatically live a life of satisfaction. They may still have challenges, but they'll have different kind of tools. And in many ways, the book, The Path of the Spiritual Warrior, is about learning to apply very practical, active ways of living a life of impeccability, of living from the heart, of manifesting magic, manifesting ease and grace, and of having a spiritual foundation that allows us to transmit to transit through this time. Because for me there are two pillars beyond the just living from the heart and living in the moment. Those you might call two pillars. The other two are trust or faith and patience. That's how we managed to get from November to the end of February, which is when we're talking now, 2025. Now, we also, all of this energy the dismantling began with the so-called COVID. It began by something that was created out of a harmful intent. And it ended up bringing, for those who were able to navigate the challenges, to a place where people would thrive, where people like me came out of their shells and started enjoying the things that they could do at home, like music or going hiking or bike riding. Remember, everybody was buying bicycles in those days. So, it created a shift that was unimaginable if you had come from a spiritual perspective of, oh, it's all going to be okay. We're sending light and love, and that's going to fix everything. There has to be a practical shift, a consciousness shift. You have to take actions. You have to have a practice. I recommend a practice of meditating every day, doing exercise, spending time in nature, eating healthily, drinking healthy water. Many of the practices that are in the book come from my normal lifestyle and have informed my new normal lifestyle, because I have to put into practice the things I teach. And the number one, beside these two pillars that I've mentioned, or the four pillars, examine everything. Don't take anything at face value. Don't believe what you're told, even if it's you telling what you don't believe what you think, even if it's you telling yourself. Don't listen to news. It's all been orchestrated. Find your own wisdom from within, your own connection to your God self, to your expression of God that you are. Persevere with that. You don't build a practice in one day and then that's it. It's a daily thing. You have a shower in the morning and you turn on the cold shower and you hate it, but you do it because you know it's good for you. I've learned, somehow I've been taught to do that. Or yeah, I have a bath at night, and normally I would go sleep like a baby, but a friend of mine did a session, we did an exchange, and she said, after the bath, run a cold shower. It will initiate melatonin. It will reset your melatonin levels, and it also closes your pores. And I still sleep like a baby, and I still have amazing dreams. But, I started having cold showers. Now I do it every day. I started, doing push-ups and exercises. Now I do it every day. It becomes automatic. And I try not to miss. Once in a while, yes, you have to because you're in a rush. But having a practice, I try to go for a hike almost every day to my favorite grandfather tree by a stream. I make a practice of doing practice, and it shows. You wouldn't imagine, maybe you would, I don't know, you know me better, but recently I did a little presentation on the emotion code. And somehow in the conversation afterwards, I let it slip that I'll be 80 this year. And they looked at me and said, no way, you're 65. So I take that as a compliment, but I also take it as part of my practice, part of the results of what I've been doing through my adult life and through the evolution of what life has brought me and how I've responded to it, how I've learned from it, and how I now can teach it by embodying it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love helping people. Gives me so much satisfaction. You mentioned the night and day quality of some of the sessions I've done. I have on my website recently, I did a session for a friend who seemed to refuse to want to come see me for a long time. He had severe pain in his right side, right shoulder and neck and head, and his right biceps. And he could barely move. When he took off his jacket, I could see how much difficulty it was for him. And he could barely raise his hand, his arm, to shoulder level. Finally, after many consultations with doctors and surgeons, he was at his wit's end. He didn't want to have more surgery, or I don't think he didn't want to get surgery. So finally, on the advice of a friend who kept, bugging him, go see Raphael, he came. I gave him a body code session, which actually addressed almost every muscle and ligament and all the joints. You could pinpoint it with a body code. After I did that, I think maybe 10 minutes, I just put my hands on his neck, shoulders, and this area, right side. And then at the end of that, I said, well, let's see, can you raise your hand? And you literally put his hand above his I was blown away. I took photos and it's on my website and Facebook.
Oh, I saw that the photo, but I didn't realize the whole
Nobody knew
story.
what it was because I'm still learning Instagram, and I'm, in fact, I have an Instagram webinar coming up this afternoon because
to
I've been
learn it.
going onto Instagram. So this was this man, his first session. We had 3 because I have a special pack for 3 sessions, and he was working on his muscles. He was working on improving everything and no surgery, and he was still able to raise his arm all the way above it to the sky.
Okay, so I have a question about, okay, so we're not there yet, but are we even capable of dreaming in this glorious new possibility that of what our reality can be? That's what, okay, so we're going from a humanity that's got high contrasts, lots of high emotions, not in any what's the right words. I'm trying to say that we're going from conflict to peace. And the age of Aquarius is we're supposed to have 1,000 years of peace. Right?
No.
No?
1,000 years is nothing.
Okay.
We're moving towards a new cycle, a new octave of being.
Right.
So if you see it as a spiral, every time we come around the galactic orbit,
Right.
we're moving into a higher and higher octave. The next Kali Yuga doesn't have to be as hard and as bad as this one was, because everything is raising in frequency. The whole galaxy is evolving.
Right. Right.
So the work is so to address the beginning of what you were saying, yes, we are moving into this, and this is the most important cycle that our Earth and our galaxy have ever been through.
Right.
Because at this time, we're moving towards a new species of human that some people call Homo luminous.
That's what Barbara.
Of light. Yeah, Barbara Marx Hubbard, she talked about Homo
Luminaris.
Or universalis.
Oh, universalis. That's right. You're right.
So the thing is, we're evolving to a whole new frequency in which we are going to be aware of our multidimensionality. We're actually being asked to envisage the world that we want, to see it as coming into fruition, into manifestation. And I was told that I would see it in my lifetime, and I believe we all will, because those of us who are doing the kind of practices that we're talking about will extend our lives. We're recreating youthfulness. We're lengthening our telomeres. We're changing our physical biology and physiology through our consciousness, through our thoughts. When we start to only think love and positive, we create that in our lives. We are what we think, but we also are who we see ourselves becoming. So the path of the spiritual warrior is a path of evolution. It's like a manual for ascension. And it's about practice. It's about every time you have a negative thought or a worry, interrupting it and replacing it with a positive, loving, and life-enhancing thought. The more we practice in our daily life, being kind, being loving, interrupting our negative patterns, expressing unconditional love to the people that normally we would have bitched about, everything we do is enhancing and bringing closer the new earth. And so I don't see 1,000 years is peanuts in cosmic time.
Right.
We're also evolving to the point at which we will end the galactic wars. We will be able to release from our galaxy and from our universe and send it wherever it needs to go, all that is evil. I don't like the word, but the word evil is the reverse of live. So anything that's anti-life, that has no heart in it, has no place in the new dispensation, which we call the new earth. So that will disappear because we will have evolved to a level at which it no longer even exists in our thought processes. One day the children will say, war? What is that? How can anybody harm another? They're harming themselves. The understanding of our true nature as expressions of God will become everyday normal in such a way that there will not even be an opening for that kind of energy any longer in the vibration that we're evolving into. It may still exist elsewhere in some other universe, in some other world, but that's not our affair anymore. We can still send them light, but our purpose is to embody the new earth, the new human, one who expresses and lives the path of love, the path of service, the path of cooperation, of recognizing equality, of honoring all colors, all belief systems, and of recognizing that we're all God. We're all, I don't know, excuse me if I use the word God, but it's easy and quick and get the point. Yeah. So the God self, I like to call it source. There's nothing but source. Everything is made of this plasma or this prana. You can call it many things, the living spirit that old Chinese calls it. We're all made of the same stuff and we are all it. You know, it's a paradox. It's a mystery. We are the great mystery. God is not out there somewhere. Source, creator is within us. We are designed according to the blueprints of sacred geometry that make us up as who we are, and they are self-generating. Whatever it is that's set in motion, this grand scheme, is what we are and what we're part of and are inseparably part of. It's mind-boggling. But the mind is, the mind doesn't have the capacity that the heart does to fathom the truth. That's why all the distortions, all the books that were histories that were written, all the dogmas were created by humans who did not have the full picture and who needed, for some reason, because of the Kali Yuga, they needed to have their own, greed satisfied, their own perversions, whatever it is that has created this horrific life that we're moving out of. It was necessary, it was part of our evolution, and now it's evolving to a whole new level.
Perfect. Okay, I have a question for you about forgiveness, because that seems to be coming up when you get triggered by and you identify that there's something there.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's this peaceful, loving existence, and then something happens that triggers you. Could you talk about the path to forgiveness for yourself and others? Do you have anything you could share?
Well, that's our challenge, right? Our challenge is to not project out onto anybody else our issues, but to recognize that when we're triggered, it's because there's, again, that quote, there's something in us asking us to love more, whether it's about ourselves or others. When we, even in the body code, we can come to a place of forgiveness by recognizing that everyone carries their burden, their baggage. And then you can have compassion when you realize that. But you can also actively go into the level of soul and communicate with someone. Because when we get challenged, it's because we're being asked to clear up some old karma. We're being asked to raise our frequency to a level beyond the old judgments and the projections and the assumptions and the stereotyping. These are all mindsets, patterns of thinking and of beliefs that keep us tied to the old paradigm. And so when you get to that place of the past is over, it's no longer my reality, no matter what it created. From now on, I can choose how I respond instead of react to a trigger. But I will accept that there's a lesson here for me, and that in the process of learning it, I can let that person go. I can bless them. I can send them light, and I can forgive them because what they did, whether consciously or unconsciously, knowingly or unknowingly, they assisted me in transcending one more block.
Perfect.
And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to forgive, because forgiveness recognizes that we are all one, which is a nice mental construct. But you actually, when you are able to forgive your ancestors, all the people you harmed in any lifetime, yourself, all of these, when we forgive, we open up the pathway to the new earth, to the higher frequencies, which are unconditional love. Old Chinese said that love is the unconditional acceptance of another's reality. For me, that was one of the beautiful wisdom pieces that I'll never forget. So when people talk about love, they're not talking about conditional love, or when we are in this context. We're talking about the path that one consciously chooses to engage in that allows us to experience that oneness.
Perfect.
For ourselves, but we can't, we're not disconnected from the whole, from the collective. We're all in it together, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
We're merrily rowing our boats and swimming in the stream, just like the Hopi said. And look around, see who's with you. Don't cling to the bank. Let go, and let go and let God. And that's another thing about forgiveness. When there's something that's painful, that's not working, that's a disappointment, give it to God. Give it to Goddess. Just release it, surrender it to a higher power. And that opens up the space for forgiveness. And when we forgive, our heart is a little freer. It can open wider because it's not constricted anymore by those thoughts that are running around in our heads. Oh, I wish I didn't say that. Or why did they do this? What? We just open up to experience living in the moment with our hearts open. Showing up with our hearts open in the moment is what the path is really about.
That's beautiful. So you named your book The Path of the Spiritual Warrior. Why did you use the name warrior in the title of your book?
Well, the warrior for me represents the samurai, right? I used to love samurai movies. I did karate, and so it's someone who lives impeccably, right? Each moment could be your last. If you don't respond, if you haven't done your training, and you don't respond in the moment by drawing your sword and assailing your adversary, you could be dead. You have to learn to be fully present in the moment. You have to learn to use discipline in your life, recognizing that it builds and it creates that ability to respond in the moment in the absolute perfect way. So I draw the Shaolin priest, the old Kung Fu stories
Yeah, I love this.
that I grew up on too. These informed my vision of what it means to be a spiritual. It's not a the kind of warrior who's killing people anymore. You're slaying your own demons.
Right. Perfect.
And you're opening the path for everyone to be able to do that by your practice, your focus, your intention, because our intention carries.
Right.
That's what heals. That's what, along with the magnet swiping, it's like clearing the credit cards of the imprints.
Yeah.
But it's also imprinting our intention into the clearing, into the shift, into the new.
Perfect. Okay. I wanted to share this. Brian Zumhoff wrote, "Love you, Raphael. Your words and insights are so enlightened, spirit and source inspired. I love listening to your wisdom, my friend. Live long and keep up your amazing path, teachings and work. Kudos and blessings, my friend."
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Is that nice?
I'm glad you came.
And Phoenix was here too and said, "Good morning, Raphael." So if you all have any other questions or comments, please let us know. Do you want to share a little bit about John Henry too?
Oh, I love John Henry.
Yeah. So we haven't mentioned him at all this interview.
In the old days, John Henry was the one. Every morning after I meditate, I would, pour into my coffee and sit back with my little journal. I used to have posit journals. I started throwing them out. And John Henry was always the one who would bring me messages. He was the one who brought through the whole process of heart thread through Flow Magdalena of soul support systems. And he kind of became my buddy. I was even told that we had been drinking mates in other lifetimes, and he I felt like he was my prime guide for a long time, and I always love and still love him, and we've got a beautiful connection. So he's one of the voices in the book, and he calls himself a once human angel. And he's the one who taught us how to replace the old voices of conditioning by talking to the cells, by receiving messages from your own or your client's cells, or from their heart, or from their subconscious, which is what we talk about in the emotion and body code. And when we receive messages for our client and ask them to repeat them, then it shifts your whole DNA. Because instead of the old message of, "Oh, I'm depressed," you have a message that says, "Oh, life is exciting. I'm just beginning my journey." So you could see the difference in the vibration. And what what John Henry brought us is a way to shift your vibration and to shift the vibrational frequencies of every thought, of every belief, of every pattern. Because from a very early age, until the age of 7 or so, we're sponges. We absorb everything that's been handed down from ancestry, from our parents, our peers, from our, at school, from our teachers. We become sponges and we believe these all to be true. So John Henry brought us a way to enter the heart, recognize that we're all connected through what we call the threads of our hearts. We all share these threads. It's like an invisible network of heart threads that weave everyone and everything together, including our creatures, all of life. And so we ride on this fabric, this beautiful tapestry that's made up of all colors, all religions, all beliefs, all all people, and that connects us to the one, which we talked about earlier. It's another name for source, and so by tuning in to the messages from the body, John Henry taught us how we can replace those old patterns that are so endemic and unconscious with fresh, life affirming words and beliefs and patterns. And so, I mean, John Henry, I take my hat off to him. I love him dearly because he's always with us. He said he's always in our back pockets.
Oh,
Just have to reach for him.
that's so perfect. So one other question, and then we will need to wrap up. For the listeners, you are very aware of your connection to your team. How would you suggest that the listeners get more of a connection to their team, or upgrade their team even during these times?
Well, the first thing I would recommend, I know it's not everybody's, cup of tea, is meditation. Go into the stillness, quiet the mind, focus on the heart, focus on the breath, focus on your presence, open your chakras, live, anchor, connect with Mother Earth and Father Sky. Create a practice. I recommend that don't use substances, because anything that clouds your consciousness is not going to help. I mean, it could temporarily, but in the long run, you want to be as clear as possible that what the messages you are getting, the words that are running around in your head, are positive and loving, and you're not opening yourself to other kinds of energies or entities. So having a practice is the first thing. Time in nature, eating healthy organic food, drinking water, constantly examining your thoughts. Essentially, I would say, get the book, The Path of the Spiritual Warrior. It has a number of exercises. It has recommendations. Every chapter starts with an opening meditation that you can make your own. It's simple. Heaven and earth, connect to Mother Earth, connect to your breath, start radiating light, and ask. They say, knock and your door will be opened. Ask and you shall receive. But you have to quiet the mind to hear the answers. So whatever practice you can do to quiet the mind, to still the emotions, the fluttering, the oh my God, the worry, to stop projecting fear and instead use those pillars: patience and trust, unconditional love. Use the things we've talked about in your daily life. It's a constant practice. We never stop. It's the most important thing you can do, as far as I'm concerned, is have a consistent practice, which should include some form of stillness or silence in a practical way, like meditation or walking in nature
Perfect.
or yoga, whatever it is.
So, Raphael, want to make sure we've been putting your information up on the banner, but would you please just as we wrap up, could you please share the best way for people to connect with you and possibly, well, hopefully get the book, and if they want the fast track to bringing in more of their soul essence into their physical body. Hopefully, I'll spend some time with sessions with you.
Sure. So the best thing is to go to Healing the Scars, all one word, Healing the Scars with a C, .com. And I also have a website, raphaelweisman.com, but I've transferred all of my energy healing material to the healingthescars.com website. RaphaelWeisman.com is more about me, my artistic creations, my articles, my life story, all that kind of stuff. And then, yes, you can book an appointment through my website. I'm actually raising my prices on Monday, the 3rd of March. And I have special offers like 3-packs or 5-packs for reduced prices, because often people need more than one session.
Right.
And all of that's available on my website. You can just hit a book an appointment button. If you've ever had a session with me, I welcome reviews. There's another button there. I'm learning a lot how to use this technology and simplify. And that's another thing. If you want to have a happy life, simplify. That's one of the foundations of satisfaction, which is happiness, really.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Raphael. It's always a joy to be with you. And you gave us so many gems of wisdom during this conversation. Thank you. It was beautiful. It was perfect.
It's always a pleasure. I'm always delighted. And what was I going to say? Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel with all the little channelings I do. And I do have a newsletter list, everything you can find on my website. And also my phone number, I think. Well, certainly a way to email me and get more information. And I have a booking program too, which you can book a session.
Perfect. Well,
and this will be available as a replay. So I'll also post that on my website and in my newsletters.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and bless your work. Bless you. And I hope everyone that sees this will share this with their loved ones, because there's no reason to suffer anymore.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy.